Yeah. Get your ass up and hurry.
Would you like drugs with them?
And we believe that doctors are treating the symptoms of MSG toxicity and calling it chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, asthma, ADD, depression, obesity, host of neurological disorders. And, of course, the PR people for the food industry, the glutes as they're called in the industry, are they're basically paid to put a healthy spin on MSG. And they'll cite their own industry-sponsored tests that assure us that it's safe. They don't want you to know about the 400-plus tests that have been done on lab animals since the 60s that prove otherwise. And if anybody wants to search this out, they can go to our site at www.msgmyth, that's myth.com, or they can go to a site www.truthinlabeling.org or www.msgtruth.org. And the last one is put on by an ex-food scientist, Carol Hornline, and she left the industry because she tried to tell the people that she worked for that with her tests on animals, she found that MSG was a very harmful substance, but they did not want to listen. Do you have any questions to start me here?
Well, I think you've done a marvelous job giving our audience an overview, and I would ask you, how did you begin to avoid MSG?
Well, for me, of course, like I said, I went to this organization called No MSG, and they told me to basically shop the perimeter of my grocery store. And that means eating fresh fruits and vegetables, meats that aren't injected with,
hormones,
tenderizers, MSG,
right.
These types of things, broth. You know, a lot of turkeys are injected with MSG, and so at Thanksgiving time, we look for the ones that have nothing but turkey. Monosodium glutamate is called a flavor enhancer. A lot of people think it's a preservative. So it's not. It does nothing to food, but it does affect the person that ingests it. And it's made from glutamic acid. It's free glutamic acid, and it's made in a factory. It's not. We have glutamic acid in our bodies. I mean, we need a certain amount of it for healthy brain neurotransmission. There's no doubt about it. But we are getting so much of it. So I basically avoid food that is bagged, bottled, frozen, processed. Anything that's processed, fast food, I cannot handle. I cook with whole wheat flour. I make my own bread, because even bread, if you look on the label, you'll see terms like whey protein, soy protein. You'll see words like dough conditioners. Many times the dough conditioner that they use is glutamic acid, the harmful component of MSG, or it's aspartic acid, because they are amino acids. They are protein, and this feeds the yeast, allowing you to get that big, fluffy, soft loaf of bread. Also, you'll see, I'm trying to think of some of the other things you'll see in bread, but on other labels, maltodextrin. Maltodextrin has a high percentage of free glutamic acid. These are isolated products made from substances that are high in glutamic acid for the sole purpose of getting concentrated glutamic acid in another way into the food that you don't know of. You don't see the word MSG. So it's kind of sneaky. It makes for clean labeling, is what the industry calls it.
Right, because it comes in many aliases. People do not recognize it as being MSG.
True. That's true. The fact it is called an excitotoxin by neuroscientists because of its degenerative effect on the brain and the nervous system. Neurons are overstimulated to the point of exhaustion and cell death even. And MSG first goes to the brain through the membranes in the mouth, the throat, and then it enters the bloodstream as MSG-laden foods are ingested. And it tricks the brain into perceiving like you taste a salty and a sweet, savory taste instead of the sour and bitter, and this can hide tinny or chemical flavors in the food. In the 1950s, it's estimated that we ingested about 12 grams of MSG per person per year. Today, that estimate is 400 to 500 grams per person per year.
Right.
Yeah, that's a lot. And since the late 40s, the amount added to our processed foods has doubled with each 10 years. So for me, I basically eat fresh foods. I have to do my own. It's cooking like Grandma did, you know,
Right.
from scratch. And at first it was a little bit daunting, but like I tell everybody that I talk through and encourage, the first couple months are the hardest. The first year is on a learning curve, and we are to allow ourselves to make mistakes and to read all we can and to take care of ourselves, our bodies, and we have to watch what we put in it. I don't drink low-fat milk because low-fat milk, when it first came out in the 60s, it was this clear blue liquid, and it was not very palatable.
Right.
And so what the producers decided to do is, whoa, let's kick it up a notch and make it thicker and more palatable by adding dry whey or dry milk solids. And what people don't realize is that these are highly processed substances because high heat has been added to the product, to the milk, and it is shot through silos. And when it reaches the bottom of this silo, it's dry because extremely hot air has been pushed into it to dehydrate it. And in this process, glutamic acid is freed up. It's in a free form. The peptide linkages have been broken down from the natural milk into the form that we find in MSG. It's a form that our bodies can assimilate so quickly. I mean, it reaches our bloodstream 8 to 10 times faster than bound or naturally occurring glutamate that you find in natural milk or tomatoes, mushrooms, fruits, vegetables, grains, meats. All these things contain natural glutamate, and that's okay. But it's when acids or bacteria or heat is added to or are added to substances that are high in glutamate, like corn or soybeans or milk or wheat, then you get a hydrolyzed protein. And this is the problem we're having. We're getting way too much of it, much more than our bodies need. And the glutamate industry literature would have us believe that MSG and bound natural glutamate are the same. And I want to emphasize they are not. And also present in MSG, the kind that's produced in the factory, are contaminants, carcinogens, and a form of a glutamate that is called D-glutamic acid. It's not even found in nature. So this is not the same. And they will also have us believe by their literature, and you can go to the internet and you can go to the Glutamate Association, and this is a lobby group for the huge glutamate and food industry, and they will tell us that MSG does not cross the blood-brain barrier or the placental walls.
Wow.
Yeah, they will say this. And yet, hundreds of tests on lab animals have proven otherwise, and this has been since the 1960s, when Dr. John Olney, a world-renowned scientist, first sounded the alarm about MSG and its effects on developing fetuses, children, and adults. So you think of the blood-brain barrier on little children and newborns. It's not even fully developed.
Right.
And even in older people, our blood-brain barriers can be compromised by injury to the head, a spine, a high fever, seizures, aging, normal aging. Repeated ingestion of MSG is now suspicious, is a suspect problem, because they think that this is a theory that people who are neurologists trying to come up with ways to help people with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, they're saying that they are coming up with glutamate blockers for these terrible neurological disorders. That's the newest drug now for migraine and for depression and for obesity. They are glutamate blockers they are developing.
Here's your drug, sir.